And we are live. Hey, everybody. All the people not watching.
No one on quite yet.
Right?
Well,
let's wait until
there.
A few viewers pop in and see what's up. But how's your day been?
Good? My day's been okay. Well, actually, since we're waiting for a few viewers, I'll be right back and tweet this.
Yeah, sure.
You know what? Never mind.
Hold on. Do what you got to do, man. What's up, guys? I'm just chilling out tonight.
All right. So, how's the construction going?
Slow but steady. We got a guy clearing.
To see it actually happening.
Finally, yeah. I got the guy clearing the land. Once the land's cleared, then I'll be able to find the right building spot on that first 2 acres that's being cleared, and then go from there.
Nice.
But it's a long process because I got to get a septic and water. Got to get a septic and well put in.
So, are you going to actually have multiple people living there, or is it just going to be you?
No, it's just right now we're building the studio. It's just me, But I need a bigger place than this. Once I'm living up there, that's when I'll get started on building the village and shit. But no, it's just me. Basically, it'll be a big building with a little apartment inside of it. And the rest of it's just going to be a big open building for me to build a big, massive indoor set in. So
that's awesome.
Yeah. I'm thinking about going with like a 40 by 50 or 40 by 60 building or 30 by 50. Yeah. And basically have a little kitchen, bathroom, and bedroom in it on one end. Then the rest of it will just be open. So, yeah.
Oh, very cool.
Yeah.
Very, very cool.
Exciting times.
Nobody popping in, huh?
No, we got 16 viewers now.
Oh, okay. Well, I guess we got started then, right?
We just got to wait until it goes live and then people see it, get the alert, all that crap. So, all right. Justin's in the chat. What's up, Justin? I ain't talked to you in a while, brother. Give me a call, man. Everybody, this is Josh.
Hello there. Josh Vinny, author of Case File Arkham, World War Kaiju, and a bunch of other books.
Yeah, so we had Kat on and talked to her, and now we have the artist of those wonderful books on this show.
Artist of one of them. Actually, I'm primarily a writer these days, but yeah.
Right, so you're the writer, not the artist.
Only for the book entitled Utopiates. The rest of them, no.
All right. Cool.
That was the art of the ever-talented Patrick McAvoy.
Cool. Well, it's great art, and they're fun stories, man. I just finished the one. What was it? There's 2 of them.
Case File Arkham.
Yeah, but there's 2 Case File Arkhams. I just finished the one with the chick on the cover.
Oh, okay. Yeah, Her Blood Runs Cold.
Her Blood Runs Cold, thank you. Yeah. I'm terrible at interviewing. I don't have notes or nothing. This isn't fucking Larry King, man.
That's okay. That's okay. We can start bullshitting. I've been listening to your shows quite a while. I've been in and out of costume. I've heard the story of you being the the art guy in high school that you were off.
Is that who you were too?
Industrial music, but yeah.
Yeah, fine. Yeah, about the same thing.
Hung out with the freaks.
Right? Freaks are my people.
Oh, yeah. And then somehow finally figured out this is what I'm supposed to be doing.
So I do have questions, though, just because I couldn't remember the name of the book I just finished because I'm tired.
Oh, sure.
Doesn't mean I don't have good questions for you.
Here into it. Ask me anything.
Mm-hmm. So how's it coming as far as the business? I mean, you guys, is this something you guys do for full time, or is this just really small publishing venture, you know?
I do it full time, but again, I am a full-time writer. I do a little bit of the business stuff, primarily some of the ads, the art, things like that. I'm kind of the idea person.
Right.
But at the end of the day, the business is cats. And I'd have to say this has been a great year for us. I'm sure she gave you the full rundown about how the two of us used to be in mainstream publishing, that we were with a company called Archaea that later got bought out by a company called Boom. And
right.
After that long, arduous journey, we finally said, you know what, screw it, let's do it for ourselves. At least we'll get paid.
Right. Yeah.
And
it's perfect time to do that because the digital world is growing.
Yeah.
You know?
Absolutely.
It is the time of entrepreneurs again in America. You know?
Amazon, YouTube, all of that has just opened so many doors, and never a better time, because the creative industries themselves and the creative arts are just imploding with insanity. They've been essentially colonized by mentally ill people who really couldn't pull a creative thing out of their ass if their life depended on them.
Yeah, the problem is a lot of these, kind of hardcore, ideologically driven people come out of college and they end up with art degrees. It's like infested, right? So they end up with art degrees. So they end up in the jobs of creative people that are doing our comic books and our movie writing and all that stuff. But not only are they interjecting their own ideology into it, but they went to school to learn. They didn't learn how to be creative. And in my opinion, you can't really learn how to be creative. You can learn how to build the skills to take your creations further.
Right.
But creative people, man, you got to have an imagination from the get-go, And I think the only way to have that is to either kind of be born with it or to nurture it as a child. So like when I was younger, I read a lot. I read a lot of books. I watched a lot of movies and stuff, You got to be creative kind of from the get-go. And I think a lot of children are, but then they end up losing it, depending on what path they take in life. So like my brother was really creative. He's a great artist, but he gave up art a long time ago because he got into football. So he took a different path, became more of an athlete. Yeah. And so he doesn't do as much creative stuff as I do anymore. It's just not in his wheelhouse anymore. Now he's going to get a law degree. He's focused his brain more on numbers and, and stuff like that, and learning how to write contracts. And, he's been like the CFO of is it CFO? Is that right? Yeah. Chief Financial Officer of school of my university that I went to, actually. So,
okay. Wow.
Yeah, my brother's been up there, for a while now, but now he's quitting that and getting a law degree, which I'm really proud of for him and everything. But some people take a different light. But when he was in high school, when we were in high school, because I'm only 2 years younger than him, so I was in 10th grade while he was a senior. He was in the arts. He did pen and ink drawings and all kinds of stuff. He's a very talented artist. It's just not the direction he went after high school, Yeah. So I think some people just kind of like come out and their ideology drives their creative process, but they just build on top of what other people have created. So a lot of people are getting jobs at like Marvel and stuff, and they're writing for Iron Man, they're writing for Thor, these things that's already been created. So all they have to do is interject their ideology and tell a different story with the characters already created. I like people like you who are like, fuck this, I want to do my own thing. I have my own creations, I have my own characters, I want my own stories to tell. And I don't want to be told that I'm doing it wrong or have somebody breathing over my shoulder. I have mad respect for that.
Well, then you're going to like this story about my past. After being with Archaea, which was our second publisher, Kat and I both actually did a job for DC Comics. And it was illustrating a Catwoman story that was in, was it 80-page giant-sized Batman? It was an anthology.
Right.
And it was an interesting experience. I'm very happy with the work we did. And afterwards, there was the possibility of us being brought on to do Red Hood. And I remember at that time, really just weighing on me. Is like, do I want to sacrifice the next 3 to 5 years of my life, ripping my guts out and working my ass off on a character I have absolutely no passion for, no desire to write, no interest in? And fortunately, before I even had to make that decision, and fortunately, so I didn't have to burn that bridge and tell them no, the company went through restructuring and they lost interest in us. But I don't think I could have done it. I ultimately came to the conclusion that that was not something I wanted to pursue, and that I was getting depressed at just the thought of doing it for a few years.
And that's the difference between in the arts. Like there is there's a split road when it comes to the arts. Like everybody starts learning the same stuff, and then eventually in college something happens and it splits, and they either take the kind of fine arts, studio arts path, which allows them to just be super creative and do whatever they want, or they take like the commercial art path. And the difference between those is the commercial art path, you really have to learn to do some shit you don't want to do, because it's all about what the client wants.
Yeah.
So you start learning like logo design for businesses, and you start learning like Illustrator and things like that. And it's like you get these assignments from the teacher that are like, I want this. And then you're all like, being a creative person, if you took a fine art, if you've been fine arts and like studio art up until that point, you're all like, but I think it'd really look good like this. And then the teacher goes, no, that's not what I want. Because he's trying to teach you.
Oh, there's an art form to graphic design. I did that professionally.
Of course there is, but there's a mentality change.
Oh, yeah.
Where it's like, you don't get to just do whatever the fuck you want. You got to do what the customer wants, you know? So, like, I totally understand that. And that was my break off. Like, I enjoyed logo design. I enjoyed business design. I enjoyed commercial art. That's what I got my degree in. But I was thinking too much like a business person, and it was making me not like the art. So I decided to kind of go into business for myself and do this YouTube thing and see what would happen. And sure enough, I found something I truly love and am passionate about. But I'm not going to sit there and judge other artists who take the commercial art path and end up having to work and do some things they don't like to do sometimes, because that is a more secure road than the fine arts. Because over here, if you take the full creative path, you're like, I get to do whatever I want. That's where the whole poor, starving artist stereotype comes from. It's those people. Because not everybody's going to be able to do anything they want and then get paid for it.
Yeah, you can't really do anything you want. I mean, at the end of the day, for myself, for instance, I'm a writer. I owe my audience a good story. Right. And so, if I don't deliver that, I have not delivered. I've not done my job. And, I live and die on that.
Right.
And there are those people who think, well, I'm my own boss. I can do whatever I want. Yeah, and they don't have to buy it. What's kind of interesting, you were bringing up the issues with Marvel and DC, and I think there's a bit of a deeper problem than just utilitarian or commercial art versus creativity.
Well, I wasn't doing that. No, don't misunderstand. I was saying that branched off of your story where you were all like, I don't know if I want to do this because I have no interest in Red Hood. Well, if you were a commercial artist trying to make some money, that wouldn't matter.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
you take the job. But as far as when it comes to DC and Marvel, no, it's definitely like an embedded, and it's not just comic books. We're starting to see this kind of like leftist hardcore ideology bleed into all the shit that we love. Like, and they're not even fans. I've noticed this. They're not even actual fans of. Like Anita Sarkeesian is all like, I'm a gamer. No, you ain't, bitch. We all know you ain't never gamed.
No.
But she's trying to insert herself into something that other people love.
It is all propaganda to them. There is no difference between art and propaganda. And kind of the depressing part is the people that Marvel is hiring right now aren't creative. They don't have a creative bone in their body. They have no business in the arts. A lot of them actually were like organizers for the DNC. They were activists. They weren't creative to begin with.
They were, political activists in college. They spent most of their time at protests instead of actually learning.
You look at a lot of the artists, they're complete hacks and they have no business drawing a book. Their books are becoming filled with typos and just basic errors. But worse than that alone, is the people out there who are talented, who for whatever reason have been taken in by this cult and had it beaten out of them. Whatever talent they had, whatever creativity has been swapped for what they think is going to get them sales or please the right people, or I don't know.
Right. Or just to keep their job.
That's far more.
That's the hard part, is you probably have creative people who want to do a really great story, and then they go to their editor, and their editor's the one that's ideologically driven. And they're all like, we love to do this Batman story where, he hunts down a rapist and has a real hard time figuring out whether he should just break his rule this one time and kill this motherfucker. And then the editor's like, no, we can't do that. Rapists are people too. And then, so I don't know, what do you think of this infantilization of art? This,
that's disgusting.
Yeah, this taking these great characters and then making them kind of gender neutral. Like She-Ra looked very gender neutral.
Well,
the fucking new Thundercats look like little babies.
Yeah. And the person who did that obviously had no love for the property or the characters or he had no knowledge of it. He obviously wanted to do Adventure Time, and that's what he was going to do. Mm-hmm. I think it's a reflection of the fact that the people that colleges are turning out right now, even Cal Arts, an art school, have no creativity. They can't create anything new. Right. Everything they've created is either an old property that they've turned into an abortion, or their influences are so blatant when you see it, it's like, yeah, that's just a copy of this. This is nothing original.
Right.
I would have to say Sargon's opinion on this is dead correct. Nobody's going to remember this shit. And if they do, it's going to be one of those things where we look back and say, yeah, remember when they tried to reboot all those cartoons and they were utter shit?
Yeah. And they're doing it more and more. They're doing it more and more because it's even in live action movies. I watched the Power Rangers movie the other day because it was free on Amazon Prime, and I was like, what the fuck is going on? Why are these edgy teenagers the Power Rangers? The original Power Rangers were good kids. They were just good kids. They were good kids. That's why they were chosen. Now we got a Kimberly who tweeted out a nude photo of her best friend or something because she was jealous that she was dating some guy. Yeah. And it's no, you're a horrible person. And she's all crying I know I made a mistake. And Jason's all just because you made a mistake doesn't mean you're not a good person. And I'm over here no, you are a terrible person. You're a fucking terrible person.
That is another trend that is worth bringing up, is that this current generation of artists are so steeped in moral relativity and postmodernist, there is no right, there is no wrong, that they're incapable of telling stories with a moral arc or a character learning something, or they're incapable of actually writing heroes, if you haven't noticed.
Well, I did have a friend of mine who was doesn't that create a more dramatic character, though, to have them have flaws? And I'm yes. But not in the way that makes them this super edgelord teenager. They tried to rip off Breakfast Club. All the Power Ranger kids are in detention together on Saturdays. They all fucked up, And it's that's how they all meet. And then they're all hanging out in a quarry, and they discover the magic fucking coins that take them to the magic spaceship, and the magic spaceship gives them powers. And don't get me wrong, there are some redeemable characters in that movie. The fucking autistic kid, Billy, the black guy that is no longer Black Ranger, they made him the Blue Ranger because they were we can't make him the Black Ranger. The original show created racism by making the black guy the Black Ranger, and I'm but the Black Ranger was cool. I want to wear black. I don't want to wear fucking yellow. I'm in battle, man.
I'm going to call bullshit on that being racist for the sheer fact that how many characters created by black creators all have the name Black in the character name? Have you ever noticed that?
Yeah, Black Panther, black guy who ends up being Spawn. No, I'm sorry. Yeah. I'm sorry. I got a fanboy out a little bit. I am excited they got Jamie Foxx to be Spawn. for the new
I
movie.
had no idea they were making Spawn again. It's about time.
Oh yeah, McFarlane's making Spawn, and Jamie Foxx is going to be Al Simmons, and Jeremy Renner is going to be Twitch.
Really?
Yeah, the detective. Yeah,
cool.
I don't know who's going to play Sam, but Sam and Twitch are a big part of Spawn. You know,
they should bring John Leguizamo back for the Violator. Yeah, clown.
I don't know about that. Like it was funny because like that movie had its moments because it was John, but I always felt John was too goofy. Clown was the antithetical clown. Like it was ironic that he was a clown because he was actually a fucking psychopath. Like he's the Joker. So it's ironic that he is forced to be this fat clown on Earth. You know, the Malbolgia fucking punished him, you know, by basically.
Really?
Yeah, he was supposed to be.
Look, I haven't read Spawn since I was a senior in high school, so it's been a long time.
No, like Violator, basically Violator is a demon of hell, and Malbolge would send the brothers. There was multiple ones. Violator was the main one, but I mean, he had a brother, Vindicator, you know, the Viscerator. Like they all had V names, right?
Yeah, I remember.
And they all look very similar, you know, big old fucking mouth and shit, you know. But Violator kept killing Hellspawns. He kept on just fucking killing Hellspawn. So Malbolge finally punished him by giving him like the body of a fat, retarded clown.
I didn't know that. I like that.
So
the one that stands out to me, and again, I had read it since I was a senior, is the one that it actually happens in hell, and you've got the group of people waking up in hell.
Oh yeah, that was Chili, that was the serial killer, the child killer.
Yeah,
he wakes up in hell with this whole other group, and
that was great. I really liked that one. I remember
he ends up strangling. Yeah, he ends up strangling the little girl, and it turns out it's Vindicator, and he comes out of her skin, and he's all like, "Yeah, you really proved yourself," and takes him to the 8th level of hell where he becomes a hellspawn. That's a great issue. But yeah, like no, they're even in the cartoon series on HBO. Clown talked.
That was good.
He was talking to these kids. He was talking to these street urchins, telling them this epic story about how he was a hero in medieval times. But even during that story, he mentioned that he's like, "Now I'm a fat clown. You think I could get laid looking like this?" You know, like he really hated the fact that he was being punished all the time because he didn't think spawns were worthy of leading Hell's army. So he was constantly like sent to Earth to watch over one of these spawns and guide them into the path of hell. And then when they fucking rebel or don't do what they're told, he fucking just murders them. And Malbolge got tired of that shit and punished him. So like there's this whole like ideological drive with Violator to finally have his master recognize him, that maybe he should lead the army. Like it should be a native born hellspawn. Like a native of hell should lead the army, you know, and not some human, you know, human soul. So like he was funny, but in a really dark, twisted way. John Leguizamo made him like goofy. Like there's that whole scene where he just like appeared in a cheerleader outfit.
Yeah, I recall
like, go Spawn, you know, and it was funny. Don't get me wrong. He was definitely
over the top.
Yeah, but it was so over the top for clown. Because if you watch the HBO animated series, that was clown. Like
I did not get to see the whole thing. I just remember the first 4 episodes were some of the best animation I'd ever seen.
Good animation. I loved all 3 seasons.
I'm including story with that, by the way. Not just not the art.
What was great? The whole thing. Yeah. What was great about the Spawn animated series on HBO was that it followed the comic books because it was done by McFarlane without any interference from production studio. That's the problem. He dropped the ball in the live action movie because he was the first time in Hollywood. His eyes were all stars, and these producers came in and said, "You can't do this, you can't do that. You have to change this character into a girl. You have to hire Martin Sheen to be Jason Wynn because he's a big name." And it just fucked up the whole thing. If they had just given him full creative control, he would have made a wholly different movie. But I think it was too early to do Spawn. The computer graphics weren't quite there yet. Yeah. You know, everybody remembers that fucking big ass cape and how goofy it looked, and because the CGI at the time really was balls. You know,
I've got a inside story on that actually. I went to school in the Bay Area, which in itself was a nightmare. But for about 1.5 years, I interned at a studio. trying to get my foot into the door at the time. I never worked out, but while I was there, turns out this studio had done cleanup graphics for Spawn, and their sole job was covering up everything that looked bad.
Right.
That's all they did, was covering up everything that did not look right.
Right. But I am excited for this new Spawn movie because it's Todd McFarlane's own personal, like, he's spent years, you know, getting the money lined up and all this. He's in full creative control. The guys directing it are actual fans of Spawn, and they're working very closely with Todd McFarlane. Good. And he's also allowing it to kind of be a different type of movie. Whereas it's more like, even though Jamie Foxx is playing Spawn, he's not going to have a lot of lines in the movie because, believe it or not, the plot of this movie is more through the eyes of the criminals. And Spawn is the serial killer creature that's killing them one by one, chasing them. So he's the silent monster figure, like in Jason or Michael Myers, you know? But instead of being told through the eyes of like the innocent teenagers that are being hacked to pieces by a serial killer, it's told through the eyes of the criminals that are being chased by Spawn. And I think that's pretty unique, to take this main character and actually just make him like Jaws and tell the story through the eyes of all these other characters that are like, where'd Bobby go? He just fucking disappeared. The chains and came out of the darkness and grabbed him. You know, like, that's going to be cool, man. You know?
Oh, yeah.
You know?
Did you ever read Grendel?
Grendel?
Okay, don't worry about it. That was another series in the 90s that actually was about the character primarily just killed off villains, and it was often told from the villain's perspective.
That's pretty cool. I'll look that up.
Yeah, it's
yeah, when you say Grendel,
definitely
I think of Beowulf, you know, but
yeah, the classic Beowulf.
Yeah.
Later it develops into, well, he's possessed by the spirit of Grendel. Grendel's like the spirit that goes from person to person over time.
The spirit of vengeance. Kind of the Ghost Rider. It's the Ghost Rider gimmick. Yeah. Yeah. I love that issue of Ghost Rider when he finally faces off with the Punisher. And he goes to do the penance stare on Frank Castle, and it doesn't work. And Ghost Rider's all like, how does my penance stare not affect you? And Punisher's all like, because I don't feel guilty over what I've done. It's like,
you ever read Judge Dredd?
Oh, yeah. Love Dredd.
Oh,
I love the movies.
Stare into the face of fear.
Yeah. I love how he never took off his helmet.
Yeah.
Like, that's why I felt like the new Dredd movie did.
Oh, I love that.
Proper.
That was great.
Carl Urban. And let me tell you, I'm excited. I'm excited for Netflix.
I hope it
original
happens.
Series. Yeah. It is. It's already greenlit.
It's going to happen.
Yeah.
They're going to stay true to.
Yeah. The show's going to be called Mega City 1, not Dredd. So it's going to involve multiple characters. It's going to have different judges, different criminals.
So Nixon and Anderson.
Right. But they are
Tony Zero.
Yeah. Mega City 1, the original show, the original Netflix series, is greenlit, but they're still in talks with Carl Urban because he wants to do it. So everybody's wondering if he's going to do it. And my guess is if he has signed on, they're going to keep that under wraps until it's well done filming.
Well, I know he's hell-bent on playing the role again, so I couldn't imagine it happening without him.
Yarrow Falstaff in the chat asks, Magog, did you ever read the Frank Miller Spawn Bats crossover? I own it. Yeah, I actually have two issues of that. I have 2 copies of it. The Spawn Batman crossover by Frank Miller and Todd McFarlane. It's pretty awesome. I love the cover art, too, because like it shows Batman and Spawn facing each other. And then in the background, there's like a split, and one half is Clown and the other half is Joker. You know, that's pretty fucking awesome. So,
and they're kind of a fitting crossover anyway. So,
what's funny is they with Spawn they didn't even hold auditions for Al Simmons.
Really?
Yeah, it's like apparently Jamie Foxx has wanted to play Al Simmons for about 6 years. And has read all the comics, and he kept bothering Todd McFarlane. He'd like call Todd McFarlane and be like, hey, if you ever do a Spawn reboot, I want to be Al. And then he started like, it was funny. I watched this whole like interview with Jamie Foxx and Todd McFarlane and stuff. And Todd McFarlane was like, I just kept getting calls, emails. Jamie Foxx wouldn't leave me the fuck alone. He started saying, and Jamie Foxx would send him like audition tapes that he didn't ask for. Like the movie isn't even thought of yet. It was like 6 years ago. And Jamie Foxx kept bothering Todd McFarlane. And by the time this movie finally got greenlit and they had all the money, they had a script, they had directors lined up, Todd McFarlane was like, just call Jamie. Just just give it to him. So I really feel like Jamie's going to put his all into it because he wants it. He's a fan.
Yeah.
He wants to be Al Simmons. He has been begging Todd to do this. That's exciting to me.
So since you are clearly a fan of the medium and very well versed, you've read at least one of my books, and I'm curious. Feedback. I'm always
Magog review. You want the Magog review?
Sure, why not?
You have to understand something. When you ask for such a thing, you will get the truth. Are you prepared? Fine. I'm not going to kiss your ass.
No. Actually, that's fine.
$3. Okay.
All right.
No,
seriously. I've had people come at me.
Yeah, no. Truthfully, I really enjoyed her Blood Runs Cold. I just felt like the pacing was good, but I felt like I was missing something.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay. Because when I did my interview with Kat, she said that you didn't have to read these in any particular order, that they were all their own kind of standalone stories. But here I am reading about this gumshoe detective whose friend shows up and tries to fucking shoot him and then blows his own or ends up getting killed, because he ends up having to shoot back. Right. And he goes on this, and he's got this super hot fucking girlfriend, who it was like some sort of witch. And the way they talk to each other, they've been together for months. And the detective is all like, all the stuff I've been through, she's been there, with me. And I'm like, am I supposed to read something? Like, I don't know who she is. I don't know what they're talking about. Like, there were parts of it where I was like, is this like the third story? Like, should I have not started with this one? And that's my only grievance, in my opinion, is that it sometimes felt like I should have already known these characters from previous issues. Like, I have no idea what they're talking about. Like, he's got a scar on his head, and apparently that's important, but it just kind of pops up, And that'd be my only thing, my only critique of it. Other than that, the artwork is fucking beautiful. The story was fun. It wasn't I don't want to say it was predictable, but it didn't have a climactic ending that I thought it would. But it was still really fun. It was still real fun ending, The language use was really good.
Thank you.
Like, I love the writing where he's just like, these broads, these dames, like talking like the times, that was really well done. And the flow of the story was good. I liked that there was like kind of these flashbacks, but they were really detailed, fucking sacrificing children to fucking evil gods and shit, fucking mysticism and witchcraft and stuff. And I like the throwback to the Lovecraft universe, like she's from Innsmouth,
Yeah.
And anybody who's read Lovecraft will get that connection more than your casual reader. But yeah, I really feel like it felt like I should have read something else first, because I had no idea who this chick is. I don't know why she's magical. I don't know how they've been together now for a while now, and he loves her. And it's like, but we didn't get to see that relationship grow. So I don't know what is going on with them. And that was my only confusion. That was my only confusion.
The aim with the series was to make it that you could enter at any point, but no, I can understand why those would be stumbling blocks for some people. I mean, others have read it, and I guess it wasn't as much of an issue, but I could understand why some people will say, okay, well, why are they referencing that? Right. What's that mean? And it is the second book in the series. So we'll have to see if after you read the first one, if that'll make any difference.
Right. Well, yeah, that's all I'm saying is like, it's really hard to do standalones unless they literally are just all new characters every time. So if you are going to have reoccurring characters, establish a timeline. That'd be my advice to you. Actually do issues like this is number 1, this is number 2, this is number 3. Like read these in order, because then you won't get all the little, because comic book readers are different than movie watchers. Comic book readers want to know the details. They look for them. So you got to keep that in mind when you're telling a graphic story, a graphic novel. It's the same with like if you got to think of it as the same as novel reading too. Would you want to pick up the Two Towers before Fellowship of the Ring? No.
Maybe.
I mean, maybe if you want to skip all that bullshit in the beginning, because the Two Towers is definitely the superior book. But you know, like, would you really want to go into it going, okay, like I'm really into the story. It's obviously you can easily read it and understand what's going on. But then you're not getting all the little, like, how do these people know each other? You have to go back, you know?
Yeah.
So it's really important that if you're going to have reoccurring characters in standalone novel stuff, have some sort of timeline for people to read. Maybe put it up on your website, like a little timeline. Well,
actually, the books are listed volume 1, volume 2, but yeah, I mean, it isn't right out there.
Right. Well, it's good that they're listed that way. At least that way people know to buy volume 1 first. Even though they don't necessarily have to be completely read in order. You're going to get a little more. You're going to get the little details are going to pop out to you when you know what's going on. Because I read that one first because it was kind of the top of the pile, and I remember my interview with Kat, and she said that you didn't really have to read them in any particular order. So I was like, I'm going to grab that one. It has the hot chick on the front. And I read it, and I'm going through it. I'm enjoying the story. I'm enjoying the detective work, you know, trying to figure out what's what and who's who and who done it. But then it gets to a point where you're just like, this hot librarian chick walks in and bails him out of jail or whatever, or is there waiting for him to come out of jail. And the other detective is all like, you got a fucking hot lady, like a woman like that at home. And they just start talking like they've been in a relationship for months now, and they've been through some things, and he knows all about her, like witchcraft and stuff. And I'm like, I'm missing something. I'm missing something. You know?
That's in the prior book.
Right.
All of that's in the prior book.
But it really did. Canvas. Yeah, it really did inspire me to want to do the comic book that H.P. Lovecraft comic book. It was a standalone story. It was supposed to be like maybe 10 pages. I mean, it would be real thin. And I started doing some artwork for it, but I didn't like it because I'm not much of a comic book artist. I'm a more realistic artist, you know? Like, I can paint a portrait. I can do a portrait of somebody in charcoal and it'll look like the person. But when it comes to drawing those, like, exaggerated features that a cartoon person would have, I'm not good at that. I've never been good at that. But I've always wanted to write this Lovecraft short story in a graphics. I wrote an H.P. Lovecraft short story. And I've always wanted to do it more of a graphic form. And I wrote this years ago, back when, you know, like, but I'm not a comic book artist. But reading yours, it was like, this is the art style I would love to tell that story in, you know. And it's a good one, you know, because it lines up with the Lovecraft universe pretty easily. It lines up with the whole, you know, seaside New England towns, you know, creepy underwater monsters and things like that, you know. And it's a good story. It ends in a terrible, fucked up tragedy, but it's really cool because it also ends with, like, this, like, detective standing on the docks and there's blood everywhere and this whole fucking town is just gone. It's like the Roanoke Island, you know, thing.
So it's the short pit.
And the guy standing on the docks is like, I was going to have it to where, like, the panels pan up and the cop back there is, like, throwing up because of all the blood and nastiness and shit. And it was going to pan up to the detective, and he was going to be H.P. Lovecraft. Wearing, like, a fedora. You know? Like maybe Lovecraft was writing these stories, but they were actual, like, case files of his or something. Like, he used to work for the Miskatonic Detective Agency or something. You know?
Well, actually, the original concept for my series is the writing and the individual issue, the individual standalone story idea was essentially to read like Marlowe, the Philip Marlowe novels. How there was an established timeline, but they weren't meant to be read in any order.
Right.
But yeah, each story is actually loosely based around or related to an actual Lovecraft story.
Right.
one you read was actually a thing on the doorstep, but reinterpreted.
I caught that. You know, there was a lot of definitely a lot of references to Lovecraft and of the original Lovecraft stories, but also kind of making it your own. And that's the way Lovecraft wrote. He wrote from the point of view of somebody who gets pulled into this thing and they're kind of writing a journal, you know?
Right.
And that plays out perfectly with noir, because noir detective novels and movies always had like the internal narrator, you know? Yeah. And that works out perfectly with Lovecraft stories because they're already told from a first person point of view and the inner thoughts of this person slowly going mad, you know. And he was the first author to actually do that. He was the first. It scared the hell out of people. They're reading these stories, and all of a sudden, at the end of the story, it's like I can hear them coming up the stairs, and you know, like if they're they're squealing and they're scratching, and the door is about to open, and then it would just, and people reading it go, "Oh fuck, he died." He couldn't finish it because he died. That was Lovecraft, man. He was the first to kind of do that. And that was fucking great. You know? Lovecraft's one of those guys that you read and he creeps into your mind. So when you're reading it, you're kind of confused and you're like, man, he's using words that haven't been used since fucking 1920s. And you're reading it and you're kind of confused and you're reading it with a dictionary and like, fucking hell, what does fucking eldritch mean? You know, and then all of a sudden you put the book down and you're like, what the fuck did I just even read? And then you lay down at night and then you don't even realize that your subconscious mind picked it up. And then you're laying down at night and then you just realized, I'm not alone right now, am I? There's something in this motherfucking house. You know, he gets to you like that. He does. And I think that's why he's popular.
I'm going to open up a window. I'll be right back.
All right.
It's kind of boiling in here.
Yep. Do what you do. What's up, chat? How are you guys doing? I'm just talking with the artist of those, or the writer of those books that Kat sent me. So if you guys remember the interview with Kat, this is her other half. I'm talking to the chat while you were gone. Okay. Yeah.
Hello, chat. What's going on?
So yeah, I wrote this great story where it was like it still kind of took place in a time when like ships were like sailing still, I guess you could say. So, you know, Victorian times more than regular times, but kind of on that cusp, Industrial Revolution, but it was like steamboats and shit like that more than, you know, like kind of like the Titanic age, I guess you could say, like early 1902, you know, it's kind of like that. So some sail ships were still being used, but also had modern steam vessels.
Edwardian.
Yeah. And you had this like small town on the edge of the sea that, you know, it was this beautiful story where this woman and she's walking with her fiance or husband or whatever, and he's about to set sail. You know, he's about to leave her, so they're on the beach and they have this romantic moment, and she's waving as he's on the ship, you know, and they're all working on the deck. They're, you know, he's like, I'll be back in a month. They're heading to fucking wherever, and then there's like a massive storm, and the ship doesn't come back. You know, and the next couple pages is basically like her getting the knock on the door, you know, like they're not back. Nobody's heard from them. You know, the preacher is there, you know, with his collar. She starts crying. And like literally most of the men in this town, except for some of the elders, were on that fucking boat. It's a very small village, you know, fishing, you know, or merchant village. And so all the men are dead now, except for like the preacher and the mayor, you know, like some of the elder types that don't go out on the water anymore. And everybody thinks it's dead, so it goes through all this series of imagery where they're hosting kind of like a funeral memorial thing. Not really a funeral, but they're all gathered at the sea and they're throwing flowers in it. All their husbands are dead. There's like a newspaper clipping, you know, fucking, you know, 23 sailors, thought dead, you know, never returned. And then like months go by, like months and months go by. And all of a sudden, the men of that boat come back out of the water, come back to the village. So one rainy night, suddenly there's like the door opens. She hears the sound. She panics. You know, the main character. She pulls a gun out, her husband's old gun, but she doesn't know how to use it because she's a lady. And he comes through the door, and it's him. He's alive. Oh my God. She goes running into his arms. They make love, and the whole town is like that. Suddenly it's like them. They're out again. He's wearing his fucking top hat. All the wives are like hugging their husbands, and everybody's back again. Like maybe they were shipwrecked, but then they start acting a little funny. Then she starts to notice things that the other women of the village don't know. She starts noticing these weird things happening with the men. They're meeting at night. They're not talking about much, not talking much about what happened. Basically, the story is they were shipwrecked, but then they were rescued. And all these weird little things. And she starts investigating her husband. She's starting to have doubts. He's acting strange. He's quiet. He's not as talkative. He's not as loving. He's not as compassionate. And then here we go with suddenly she starts sneaking out at night and trying to follow the men, and they're going into like the taverns and stuff. And she sees her husband like banging another chick, in an alleyway, Okay. It's like, Jesus Christ. Like now she's all like, he's cheating on me, and all this and that. And she can, but as the time is going by, she realizes she's pregnant. She also notices that all the rest of the town, all the women starting to get that little baby bumps, And basically, by the end of the story, when she finally figures out what's going on, that these are not their husbands anymore. Okay? They are fish people wearing the skins of their husbands, And they have come to just basically spread their seed, And by the end of the story, it was like these fucking squid fish babies are like bursting out of the stomachs of these women. And of course, she's, she fucking kills hers, she fucking strangles it when it pulls a Ripley, from Alien 3, and so she's the only like dead body on the beach with this like alien looking fish baby hanging out of her stomach. And all the men go back into the water. And so when all the cops arrive, there's all these dead bodies with like these women's stomach all split open. And these trails of blood going down the beach from the babies like squidding into the fucking water.
That's one hell of a story.
Yeah. That was total Lovecraft inspiration.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I can tell.
So if anybody wanted to like make that into a comic book, I'll send you what I've written. Or you can kind of take my basic plot and add some drama to it. Maybe some cool action scenes where she like shoots one of them in the fucking face and it blows the husband's skin off and he's got a fisheye underneath and that reveals the true nature of him or something. Like you could put all kinds of little stuff in that, but the ending basically has to end with the whole goddamn village being dead from babies bursting out of their fucking stomachs and they're all squid-like and fucking, fish-like, and they all go into the ocean, except for hers. And so she's killed hers and they had to leave it behind. And so like when the cops find her, she's got this fucking fish baby hanging out of her and the Miskatonic like FBI shows up and they're like, nothing to see here. Forget you saw everything. And they're packing up the body and shit. And it's this H.P. Lovecraft looking detective who's all like smoking a pipe like, not again. Goddamn fish rapists. Right. So that was my little Lovecraft story that I thought was better. That would be better visually, like as a graphic novel, than a short story.
It could work with both. But yeah, you could actually do a 30-40 page story with that if you wanted for a graphic novel.
Easily, yeah. If you wanted to throw in all kinds of little details, like she's the main character, the female, that's, who she thought her husband was dead until he returns. She's kind of the detective of the story. She's the only one who sees something strange is going on. Right? And so she tries to convince like the preacher, the Catholic priest, and he's all like, my child, don't question a miracle. All the men came back. They were rescued at sea. Like nobody kind of will believe her until the very end when things really start going down. So you could really have fun with that little basic plot line, So if anybody does create it, even you, just credit me, man. That's all I care. I don't want money. Like I just want to see it done. If you were looking for a new idea for your next issue, And I totally buy one too. But just put down there like co-written by Magog and Morthgar. You know?
Right now, it's strictly an artist issue. But
yeah, of course, the artist is the hard part, you know, like, because the art has to be good, you know.
It would live and die on that alone,
right?
Which is kind of critical. I think that's another thing a lot of comics are missing right now. Is it doesn't matter how good the writing is if the artist can't pull it off. But yeah, no, that's a great story.
Yeah,
and there's a ton of stuff that could be done with it.
Yeah, it's a fun one because I like that it is purely H.P. Lovecraft, but also kind of little Edward Lee. You know, he's a Lovecraft fan, and he writes a lot of Lovecraftian imagery in his novels, but he is visceral as fuck. Like, you read his stuff and you're just like, oh.
I need to get to his his Infernal series. So far, the only story of his I read was the Stickmen.
Yeah.
Which I think had a great opening, a decent second act, and then it felt like he just had to finish it.
Some of his do that, but the Infernal series definitely is some of the best I've read by him. That and Flesh Gothic. That was a good one.
Yeah?
Yeah, Flesh Gothic was fun. Kind of taking a haunted house story to the next level. Like, because it turns out this place ain't haunted. It's literally run by, like, it's like haunted, but it's possessed by, like, a sex demon. So the house starts like growing flesh on the walls, and hallways turn into giant vaginas, and it's some real twisted shit, man. It's really
that's twisted.
And these people trapped in the fucking haunted mansion are like, oh shit, there's like fucking sex monsters and rape. Like, it is some visceral shit. Flesh Gothic was a fun one to read. That was fun.
That's intense.
Yeah. But like, I love the imagery of the story I created, because the whole like idea of her finding out that it merges a lot of stories that's already been done. I mean, look at Species. You know, basically her whole point was to try to mate. Like, you know, and it's stories like that have always existed, or like The Astronaut's Wife. Remember that one with Johnny Depp? I
didn't see it, but
yeah, he comes back from a mission to the moon. And something happened to him, and he's acting a little strange, and she gets pregnant. And the whole movie, she's trying to figure out what the hell's wrong with him. It turns out he's been fucking infected by an alien life form, and the baby growing in her is not cool. You know? It's not cool.
The Fly, too.
Yeah, The Fly, you know, that was a big one, The Fly. She gave birth to, like, a larva at the end. Like, Gina Davis.
That was all kinds of wrong.
But you take that and put it in the Lovecraftian setting, and it's really fun. You know, these fucking fish things popping out of women's stomach. Whole goddamn town is like a breeding ground for these fucking deep ones. You know, it's fun stuff, man. But it's not directly connected either. There's no mention of like Dagon or Cthulhu. No. It's more of a kind of a subtle nod to Lovecraft. You know.
Well, anyone who is familiar with Lovecraft would definitely see the connection.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Motive Labros is in the chat, dropped a sign and said, fish people have no reason to live. I don't know why, but I just thought of the Futurama episode where he goes to Atlantis, and it's basically the city of Atlanta, and they've all turned to mermaids, and he marries the mayor's daughter or whatever, and then he's all excited on the wedding night, and then she's all like, so do you want me to leave while you jerk off on my eggs, or what? Like, he goes running, you know.
There are far too many fish jokes that could be made right there. So,
yep. But you know, Lovecraft definitely had I think he had I know he was xenophobic, but at the same time, he definitely had a complex about fish.
Oh, he was afraid of everything, is what I'm convinced of. Is that literally we pay so much attention to just the racism or those elements, but if you really look at the guy, what wasn't he afraid of? I mean, literally everything seemed to disturb him or paranoid him.
Well, he definitely was a sheltered mama's boy.
Oh yeah,
you know, he loved his mother. When he ran off and married that Jewish girl, she was not happy. She was not happy. And then, of course, Jewish girl made him leave Providence, and he didn't. He always loved Providence. He wanted to stay in Rhode Island, but she made him go to New York for a few years, and he was completely depressed. You know,
Yeah, he wrote Red Hook there, which he didn't seem to have much nice things to say about New York.
No, he doesn't.
And
Lovecraft is a fascinating character
oh yeah,
in and of himself, and he died a pauper. You know, he made very little money off his writing. Yeah, the most money he ever made off his writing was like $210. You know, like that was the height of his career. You know,
I think that was when he ghost wrote for Houdini, of all people.
Oh. He did a few, he did a few things like that just to pay the bills, which back then that was a lot of money. Don't get me wrong, but I mean, he didn't. I mean, if it wasn't for his friends who he constantly had wrote letters to and back and forth and all this and that, if it wasn't for them taking his work and publishing it after his death, we would have never known Lovecraft like we know him now. You know?
And I would even go a step further and say the fact that he made his world public domain.
Yeah. He allowed he allowed his friends to write in his universe and stuff like that. And he even, you know, I do believe he even had a correspondence and a friendship with what's his name that created Conan?
Howard.
Yeah, Howard.
Yeah.
So like that's some cool stuff where he made the right friends in the right places and stuff like that. So after his death, they published his work. He never actually wrote a book. They were all published in like weird tales, you know, these pulp magazines. So, and he was a student of Poe.
Oh, he's obsessed with him.
Yeah, absolutely obsessed. He would practice writing by just rewriting Poe, you know. But that also curated his very formulaic writing style. It's so very precise. You could tell when he wrote, it was just one letter at a time, very slowly, you know? And it was just, you read Lovecraft and like halfway through, like I always recommend reading Lovecraft, but I tell people don't read it when you're like dead tired and about to fall asleep. Because you're not going to remember what you read. He is the king. He's the king of the run-on sentence. Like, so many commas. When is the sentence going to end?
Actually, you can tell when he is. It's interesting. The stories he wrote, either just for money or under different names, read nothing like those stories. Anything else. His style is thoroughly different.
Yeah, he was pumping it out to meet deadlines because he accepted those jobs to make money. But when he wrote
Herbert West,
you know, oh yeah,
the fact that a Reanimator was essentially his idea of a joke.
Yeah, the Reanimator was definitely his little bite at comedy. You know.
Oh yeah.
And I remember being a youthful filmmaker. And back when I tried to do independent films, way back before YouTube and everything, I was 19 years old. We had a camera. We were trying to get some actors together and stuff. And I was practicing with some scripts that I had written. But ultimately, what I wanted to do was I wanted to be the first person, because I don't think it's ever been done correctly. I've watched a few people try to take Lovecraft's stuff and directly translate it to film. Not inspired by, but directly translate to film. And that's really hard to do because he writes in this kind of, like, some of the stuff, the creations he created, we can't even conceive their nature. They're so beyond us. And that's kind of the point. It's like if you were to look at this thing, it wouldn't even be there. It'd be invisible because your mind doesn't know how to contemplate its vast superiority to you, you know? And so people driven mad by just looking at these things, you know? So it's really hard to do. But one of my favorites, which I thought would translate very well to a short film, was A Color Out of Space.
How would you do the color?
And that was the trick I had figured out, because it's a color that we can't contemplate. I would slowly have the film transition to black and white. So it would be an opposite of Wizard of Oz, where it's bright, colored, beautiful countryside, this meteorite hits. And slowly, outwardly from this meteorite, things would just turn into this Sin City black and white.
That would work excellently.
And then when like people go to that meteorite, they're in color, the rest is black and white, and then they look at their hand and there's like a black and white spot, and they're like, what's going on, you know? And I thought that would be really great, because I wouldn't want to try to create that color. It's impossible. It's outside the spectrum of human knowledge, right? That was the whole point of that story. But I would love to do this very kind of alien atmosphere around the meteorite, and things start growing kind of oddly, and plants are moving on their own, and the countryside is changing, but it would be in black and white. And by the end of the movie, the survivor would be like driving away in his old paddy wagon, you know, and his face would be like black and white slowly, and he's like, no! And he's driving off, and the whole countryside's just black and white. And by the end of the movie, all of it is just a black and white film.
So the weird mutated animals that would come out of the zone would also be black and white, I take it?
Yeah, yeah. Anything that was affected by the color out of space would just be black and white on film. And I thought that would be a really great way to do color out of space as a filmmaker. And to keep true with the idea of the story. Yeah. I don't like these people who are like, oh, I'd do color out of space and create with CGI, create this really wicked, like psychedelic moving color within like a spectrum of all the colors that we know. And I'm like, why? It's literally a color we can't contemplate, which means it would appear as no color.
I'm trying to remember, I think EC Horror tried to do it, and they made it like some sickly green color, and it's like, well, that's predictable.
Yeah, yeah. Bill Stevens drops a sign in the chat, says, thank you for making work go by quickly. You're very welcome. And Moto Labros drops another sign in the chat, says, HPL drinking game. Drink when you come across the words squamous, cyclopean, and eldritch, etc., etc.
Gibbous.
Squidus. I don't even know how to say that word. Squamous.
Squamous.
But yeah, that's how I would do color out of space. Now, Guillermo del Toro is a huge Lovecraft fan. I'm sure you know this.
Oh, yeah.
And he actually had a script ready he's been working on for 20 years for In the Mountains of Madness. And
Which needs to be made.
And he actually had the production company lined up. He had the money and everything. They canceled the project. Do you know why?
Prometheus.
I
heard about it. Yeah.
They didn't want to release two sci-fi horror films in the same year, big budget sci-fi horror films in the same year. So they went with Ridley Scott instead of Guillermo del Toro. And so he went on to do Pacific Rim instead. And I'm sitting there going,
enjoyable.
Yeah, it's a fun movie. It's a monster film. It's just that it's for that child inside of you that loves Godzilla and King Kong.
Yeah.
But Mountains of Madness, that would have been much better than Prometheus. That movie sucked. You know?
Yes.
So Guillermo del Toro puts a lot of Lovecraftian imagery in his films, especially Hellboy. But Hellboy, the comic books had it. So, but like, fuck, Pan's Labyrinth, like all of them, man. There's all this kind of creepy Lovecraftian inspiration behind it all. But I think Guillermo del Toro, if any director in Hollywood could make a direct H.P. Lovecraft story, not just inspired by, it'd be Guillermo del Toro. Now, don't get me wrong, John Carpenter's a huge fan, too.
Yeah.
And he made 3 films that were based in the Lovecraft universe, his kind of homage to Lovecraft. But they were all just inspired by Lovecraft. They were never direct stories.
No.
So,
I don't know, though. I mean, at the Mountains of Madness, how would you translate that directly to film? I mean, there are large spans of that you'd have to cut.
Probably. I'm sure he's found a way, but I think if anybody could do it, it'd be Guillermo. You know?
And the interesting part would be that... Huh?
Oh, the weird cucumbers with spiny feet thing. Like, how do you do that?
Oh, yeah. The elder things.
Yeah, all the weird, strange little eldritch monsters. I would be interested in seeing how he'd do it, but there's nothing we could do but speculate because it hasn't been done. Now, if he ever did do it and it came out, I'd totally watch it and then try to go, is this good or not? Because it is hard to do Lovecraft directly, you know?
Yeah. Dreams in the Witch House had a fairly good interpretation done on Masters of Horror by Stuart Gordon. I don't know if you saw that one.
It wasn't bad. There have been some that have been they've pushed the boundaries and done their best, but you know, because I've seen multiple versions of the Dunwich Horror, and they were like B movies, you know, like they were crap, you know, but at least they had like the Necronomicon in it or whatever, you know, you know. So
that one could be terrifying if done right.
If done right, but the problem with the Dunwich Horror is that the other brother, there's one brother that looks vaguely human, you know, but the other brother is this thing that we can't contemplate, and it's eating cows and tearing people's farmhouses down in the countryside. Nobody can fucking see it because we can't contemplate its existence.
Well, we couldn't see it, and then they reveal it. And it's like this bizarre human torso that's got tendrils coming out of its stomach, and it emanated a cloud of smoke with hooves and eyes coming out of it.
Right, yeah, and it's just like
we couldn't process it.
Yeah, and the people who looked upon it went fucking mad. You know,
it hurt to look at.
Yeah, it's like it's hard to contemplate some of the stuff that he came up with, because he purposely came up with stuff that would frighten you, because it's, I think his most famous quote was, "The oldest emotion of man is fear."
Yeah.
And the most powerful of that emotion is fear of the unknown. And like, that is a great quote, because it is true. And I think H.P. Lovecraft is the grandfather of science fiction horror. He is the only one who ever take it to that kind of deep space realm where there's these things out in the universe that don't give a shit about us.
Right.
You know, and they would crush us in an instant if it just on a whim, you know?
I think that's why he's relevant, actually, is that he was the one that gave birth to modern horror. I mean, everything prior to him, for the most part, had some sort of theological, moral basis to it, be it Christian or another moral system. And,
well, that's the thing, though, too. Lovecraft didn't do that.
Yeah.
I mean, no, I mean, Lovecraft was theological. It was all about old gods and worships and cults and stuff. So it was still very based in the supernatural. I think when it comes to modern science-based horror, that's Richard Matheson, for sure.
Oh, no, what I mean, though, is that there was a morality to the universes prior to Lovecraft. There was always this...
Oh, yeah, good versus evil. Yeah, like God versus the devil. And then you get to Lovecraft, and it's like, there's a thing, and it's going to wipe us all out.
Nothing gives a shit about you. You're worthless.
Yeah, it was very nihilist, you know, where it's like, nothing you do matter, because when the Eldritch gods come, you're an ant to them. They don't even have any emotions or feelings about human life. You know?
There's a deeper explanation. You just can't understand it. Done.
Right. And so I really feel like Edgar Allan Poe is the grandfather of modern horror in general. Okay? Because before him, you had like Mary Shelley's Frankenstein and you had Bram Stoker. But outside of Poe, I mean, outside of them two, it was just Poe. Poe's the one who drove that kind of suspense narrative, right? That kind of like, I'm sweating right now reading this because I'm so fucking nervous about what's about to happen. But then Lovecraft and Matheson came along, and they took what Poe did, and they were like, okay, totally different visual, you know, aspects. Lovecraft went nihilist. Matheson went science. So vampires in Matheson's world, he was the first one to write vampires as a disease, not some cursed by God thing, you know?
Yeah.
So in I Am Legend, he was actually studying these creatures and figuring out their like cellular, you know, fucking structures and shit, and trying to figure out how to kill them. And that was a great story. You know, of course, it's never really been done right in a movie except for the Vincent Price film, Last Man on Earth. That was page for page I Am Legend, by the way. If you want to see a direct make of I Am Legend, watch Vincent Price's. It's a black and white film, but it is.
Sadly, I watched it, but I was drunk, so I can't really make a judgment.
I'm surprised you found it. I found it. The only reason I have it is I bought it on DVD. It's not even a DVD. It came with like 4 other movies on the same DVD.
Really?
I had to find it in like a collection of old horror films by Vincent Price.
Brief time it was on Netflix, but it's not there anymore.
It's very hard to find. Yeah. It's but it is the most direct I mean, but obviously because of when it was made, it's also low budget, black and white Vincent Price crap fest, which is why I love Vincent, the cheesiness of his horror,
Do you know what Matheson, Matheson had 2 sons. You all familiar with what his sons did?
A few things, but you can go ahead and tell the people,
Okay, well, he's got the son named after him. Richard Christian Matheson, who seems to have followed in his dad's footsteps as a very good writer.
Right. Yeah, R.C. Matheson, yeah.
And then there's the younger Matheson, whose name I don't recall, but he's best known for writing the script to Bill and Ted.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, you're familiar with that.
Oh, yeah, of course.
I always thought that was a weird kind of connection there.
I think it lines up perfectly because not everything Matheson wrote was terrible horror. Some of it was some loopy shit, man.
The one that was written like a fairy tale about the kid who wanted to be a vampire was pretty entertaining.
But a lot of people don't even realize who Matheson is until you start naming off movies based on his work or television. Like he cut his teeth in Hollywood writing scripts for Twilight Zone.
Twilight Zone, yeah.
So like what is it? Terror at 20,000 Feet was the classic William Shatner. There's something on the wing, son. Thing on the wing, the fucking goblins out there tearing the fucking wing apart of the blade, that was Matheson.
Real Steel was one of his.
Yeah, Real Steel. Yeah, that was the boxers, the robot boxing. I always thought that was like, are they seriously making a movie out of Rock'em Sock'em Robots?
Yeah.
I thought it was like a Hasbro movie because at that time, Battleship come out, Transformers was coming out, like all these movies based on like old games and stuff, right? And cartoons. Then I was like, wait a minute, no, that's based on the Matheson story. And I think one of his best interpretations, personally, by film, which it is a very slow movie but worth a watch, was What Dreams May Come.
Haven't seen it.
That is a fucking awesome movie with Robin Williams and Cuba Gooding Jr., where he dies and goes to heaven, and his wife, out of grief, who lost their children too, commits suicide and ends up in hell. So he goes through literal, like Dante's levels of hell inferno to get his wife out. And it is one of the most visually stunning movies I've ever seen. It's definitely the best portrayal of the Milton Paradise Lost Dante Inferno epic poem of hell.
Interesting.
Like he's walking through, there's a scene where Robin Williams is walking through this field of just faces sticking up out of the mud. They're just stuck there for all eternity. And he comes across his fucking dad. And his dad's all like, hey, son, how you doing? Like, it fucks your head. Yeah. And it's one of those kind of, it is definitely that kind of Dante's punishment, where it's not like, oh, like a burning fire, demons killing you. It's more like hell is your life gone terribly wrong. And you can't escape. It's just all the horrors of your life. It's more psychological.
Yeah.
But visually, it's one of the greatest movies I've ever seen. Like visually. Like the filmmaker who made that, like when he first gets to heaven, his wife was like an oil painter. And so when he first gets to heaven, and to kind of ease him into the complex nature of heaven, his angelic guide starts him off with something easy. And so his world, his heaven, is an oil painting.
That's cool.
And he like grabs a flower and it squishes in his hand and it's paint, and he's getting paint all over his clothes, running through the fields, and there's waterfalls look like oil paint, and the fields are everything's oil paint. And then he eventually it all changes to real, and it is one of the most fascinating, visually stunning movies I've ever seen, but it is slow. Do not watch it. It's story driven, pure story character driven. Like, do not watch it tired. Because it is a good, like 2 hours and 20 minutes long or something like that. And it's heavy in the dialogue, heavy in the narrative.
Well, as long as it's a strong narrative, I don't care. That's cool.
Yeah. Hell in that movie was the best portrayal of actual hell that I've seen in a movie ever. Ever. Period. It was Dante's Inferno. There were different levels. There was entire ships on fire and people still fighting because they all died during battle, and they're all they can't escape it. They're just always fighting and they're always killing each other. And that was like anger, that was like the level of hell. That was like anger, wrath, it's very cool. It's very, very cool. Like the whole scene where they have to sail to hell on this boat. Mm-hmm. And then all these bodies come up and they're all trying to get on the boat because they're stuck in the ocean, just flailing for eternity. And they take the boat down. All these naked people are pulling the fucking boat down, trying to, you know, and oh man, it was visually one of the craziest things I've ever seen in a movie.
What dream? I'm beginning to understand when my parents saw it. They came back very disturbed by it. So
yeah. What Dreams May Come is a Richard Matheson story. So is Stir of Echoes. That was a pretty cool one, Kevin Bacon. Hell House, The Legend of Hell House. That's a classic.
That's a great film. We own that one.
Yeah. It wasn't
apparently
the graphic novel's better.
Oh, is it?
Yeah, the Legend of Hell House graphic novel is much better because it actually, unlike the 70s movie where they kind of wanted to go PG with it.
Yeah.
The graphic novel actually has the proper like nudity and all that stuff because the ghost has sex with this girl, and she's all having sex with this guy that she thinks is the guy that they come to the house with, and then she opens her eyes and it's this corpse and its guts are spilling out onto her stomach and it's got a skull for a face with flesh hanging off of it. She's screaming, you know. That's great.
That's intense.
Yeah. They couldn't show that in the movie, you know.
Still, it's a very good film for what it is and when it was made.
Oh, yeah. I still love it. I have it on DVD. Yeah. I still loved it, but I'm like, the PG version. I would love to see a direct remake, a modern remake of The Legend of Hell House. I'd love it. Because they wouldn't have the hang-ups. Yeah, they wouldn't have the hang-ups that they did in the 70s, you know. I think that it would be, if you could get the right director, like you said, you get one of these SJWs and it's over, you know.
Oh, yeah.
Get an anti-SJW director, that'd be great. Because it is a story essentially about a bunch of college students and psychics and a scientist running the team, showing up at a house. They're going to lock themselves in and scientifically study the phenomenon of hauntings. And they end up all... And I'd love to see some purple-haired fucking homunculi college student get fucked up by a ghost.
Wasn't there a remake in the 90s that was awful?
No, that was Hill House, wasn't it? Not Hill House.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, that was the House on Haunted Hill. That was a totally different story. Same premise, though. Get locked into a haunted house. I mean, that's the premise of The Haunting. That's the premise of 13 Ghosts. I mean, that's a classic premise, but it started with Matheson's Hell House. Nobody had ever thought of that. Mm-hmm. Like, it's funny. You go back and read other haunted stories from Victorian times. Guess what the people do? They leave.
What?
They're not locked in. There's no they're like, we went into the haunted castle and the wind blew and a voice spoke to me and the banshee squealed. So I ran the fuck home. You know, that's how old haunted stories actually ended. Nobody died or anything. It just scared the hell out of you. Then Matheson come out and was like, imagine being locked in this joint. You know?
Yeah. Well, I swear that one was also kind of loosely inspired by some of the stuff Crowley was doing in the 30s.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, the whole point of that was the guy who built the house built it as kind of like a place where he could live forever because he built it in a specific way to enhance his psychic abilities and project his spirit so that he could live forever.
Well, it's going on 8:30 here, and unfortunately, I'm kind of crashing out early. Do you mind?
Oh, no. Yeah, that's fine, man. Just always fun to hang out with a new person, man. Yeah.
It was good meeting you.
Yeah. You could drop out, and I'll just finish off by saying, goodbye to my chat or whatever. But thanks for coming on. And,
good talking to you, man.
Yeah, and everybody, go check out 01publishing.com, right?
And I appreciate the feedback on the book, actually. That kind of feedback actually is important, that people not just kind of blow smoke up my ass. So. Oh, yeah, no problem. Yeah, I mean, I'll give it to you straight, man, But I also try to make it positive critique. Like, no, you're a creative person as well. Right. So, I mean, you kind of understand the process. Right. I don't mind if people are like, that was a mistake or that didn't really work right, because you learn from that. But when people are like, you fucking suck, I hate you, go die, that's not constructive. Oh, I've gotten that.
You know,
You do a convention, you definitely get that. I've had my share of people come to the table and just,
oh yeah, of course,
suck.
yeah. God damn, you suck. But no, I mean, if ever you want to try to take a crack at that story I came up with tonight that I told you about, or anything else, I mean, keep in touch. Maybe we
absolutely.
do another stream some other time. You and Kat are always welcome. And say goodbye to the chat. Hi, John.
Take care, Chess.
Later, guys. All right, just me and you for a minute there. You guys, sometimes I like to do these random like chats and stuff. So, everybody doing good? I have literally one more cigarette left. So when this is done, I'll end it. But yeah, I mentioned on SideQuest I was supposed to have Sargon on, and as far as I know, that's still a go. But I don't know when. He is a hard man to get a hold of. Like, he messaged me and was all like, "This week would be great. I have time this week." And I was like, "Cool, I'll let you know. I'll get back in touch with you Tuesday." So I did that, and he didn't answer back. And then I got in touch with him today, and he didn't answer back. So I went ahead and did this stream with him, with Josh. And oh man, that was like, that's just the way it is when you're working with somebody that popular, I guess. But eventually it will happen, because he said it was good, and we definitely stream sometime. So I don't know if it'll happen to this week or maybe on the weekend or something. I'm trying to figure that out. But I'm supposed to be on Drunken Peasants tomorrow night, the 16th. So it might not happen tomorrow night. Maybe during the day tomorrow or something. I don't know. So, but yeah, other than that, I'm sure anybody who follows me on Twitter has seen the updates on the land. We've got the guy up there. He's tearing trees down, man. I've been posting pictures. Been good times. And as soon as that big fucking section of land we want cleared is cleared and leveled with the bulldozer, we'll be looking at a building site for the studio. And we'll have to put a septic tank of water in up there and then build the building. And then I have to model the building on the inside to be livable. So I've got to get air conditioning and heating, and I've got to get, a bathroom put in. I've got to get a little kitchen put in and a place for a washer and dryer. And then once it's livable and it's been insulated and drywalled, and basically, I mean, it's just going to be a big empty building with a little kitchen and a bathroom and laundry room in it. And I might not even have a bedroom. I might just fucking put my bed somewhere in there so that the rest of that whole space can just be a big indoor Magog set. So once that's all done and I am actually living up there and the big indoor Magog set is built, because that's what I did the crowdfunding for, the big indoor set is built and I can start making videos with Magog in his new place, that's when we'll have to have a serious discussion about building the medieval village somewhere else on the property. And I'll clear a nice area where I want the medieval village. And then I might have to get some help. I might have to get some of you fans who want to come out and help build the building and stuff, help build some of the buildings and stuff, to come out and start helping me build Nightshade. So there are stages. I've got to get the studio done first, and I got to move up there. So the studio's got to be done right. So we're lining up the loan for the building. I've got my savings, but that's going to go into the show. So basically, I'm getting we're hoping not to spend more than $40,000 to build the building and make it livable. That's what I'm hoping for. It's about $40,000. And that way the payments stay low, and I only end up paying rent, or not rent, but mortgage. I only end up paying a mortgage that's about what I'm paying for this place. So I'm trying to keep it to where I'm not paying, $1,000 a month for mortgage. Like, that's too much right now. Like, I'm trying to put as much money into the production as possible. So if I have to sleep on a cot, I'll fucking do it. I'm making sacrifices where I don't have to have a fancy house. It's just going to be a big fucking rectangle building with a kitchen and a bathroom in it. I'll sleep in the middle of the fucking floor. I don't care. Does Morscar have indoor plumbing? Yeah, for super rich people. It's not like our indoor plumbing. It's like an indoor privy. You know, like I've always imagined that plumbing would be. You know, you're inside the castle and you have a big stone toilet with a hole, and you fucking take a shit and it goes sliding down and dumps off in the fucking river or in the sewers under the city or whatever. They did have sewer systems and aqueducts and stuff in even all the way back to ancient Roman times. So it would make sense that there's some sort of plumbing available. So I don't know. Bill Stevens says, I'll make an alternative ego Lannable Hector to help build. But, yeah, I just figured I'd take this since he dropped out, I figured I'd take these last few minutes to, was that my last one? Yeah, this is the last one. I hadn't lit it yet. I was like, what the fuck? So at least it started, you know, because I made the big announcement last month in July. Was it July? I think so. July like 6th, right? And all my fans came out of the woodwork and started backing me on Patreon and things like that. So I felt like I needed to start getting it done now that I had the backing. Because originally I was going to go find a part-time job to pay for it all, you know, to start saving extra money. Now I don't have to. I can really just start pouring some money month by month into the production, you know, like start saving up for the camera, start saving up for lumber and all that stuff. Berserker says, hey, Magog, lumber from a sawmill is super cheap. You ought to look at getting it there. Yeah, that's essentially what I'm doing. I'm not going to go out and buy some real expensive 2x4s and shit to build this thing. I'll probably end up using as much as cheap materials as possible because they're not meant to be lived in. Anyway, they're meant to be filmed in. They'll have props, and I was talking to a friend of mine tonight about that. It really was inspired by how they built the Shire in Lord of the Rings. Instead of building these like styrofoam sets that look like real stone and stuff, they literally went to New Zealand, bought a huge plot of land, and built the Shire. They built all those little hobbit holes in the fucking hills and everything. Like, they built it. So you can still go there to this day, and it's like a huge tourist attraction. And actually go into Bilbo's house, and all the props are still there. All the tables, the furniture, everything. Like, it's no joke. They just built the fucking thing. And that's kind of what I'm inspired on like a functional set all the way around. It's not going to just be outsides of the buildings so that it looks nice, but inside it's just big empty room because we never film inside. No, it's going to be functional all the way through so that I can film on it over and over again, you know, and do different camera angles and stuff. So, yeah, that's kind of my only worry about building these buildings is building the tavern. Because I can go out there with like $2,000 worth of supplies and a few hands to help and build one house at a time for about $2,000. It's about how much it costs to build a cabin, an off-the-grid cabin, you know, like a hunting cabin. And that's essentially kind of the look. You know, this is a village out in the middle of nowhere. This is not a super big trading post or something like that in Morscar. I mean, it's going to have to start out very simply. But the tavern's going to be the hard part because I need it to be big enough to actually be a tavern. So it's probably going to end up... I'm kind of inspired by the taverns in Skyrim simply because they have like rooms to rent off to the side, but they don't have upstairs. See, I'm worried about doing second levels. But I also think that a second level building would look nice. Like this nice big, you know, here's all these medieval houses building up down like the main street of the village. And then at the very end is the big inn. And it has like a stable off the side of it. And there's a sign hanging out. And there's like these nice windows. And it's nice and tall compared to all the other buildings in the village, and it would look visually pleasing. But I'm a little worried about building an upstairs and a downstairs type style building, you know? And so I thought about making the Ugly Mug a second, like a 2-story inn, and have the bedrooms upstairs. See, a lot of times in medieval times, too, they didn't have bedrooms. The taverns would literally have a second loft, and it would just be filled with beds. And people had to sleep fucking next to each other and shit. Like, you were a traveler on the road. You didn't have rooms. You went upstairs and fell in a bed once you paid the guy. You know? So I thought about making it very simple like that, where there's just multiple beds upstairs, so we can shoot a scene where maybe Magog comes in town, doesn't have a place to stay yet. And so he's got to sleep in that inn, and there's all these snoring other people in there, you know? But the design of the tavern is going to be the hardest part, because it's going to be way bigger than all the other buildings. And that's a project. So people need to understand that even though the work has started, and that by the end of this year, I'm definitely going to be living up there on that property, because we're figuring it out. As soon as this guy's done excavating that land and cutting down all them fucking trees and everything, and I can get a good look at those first 2 acres, find the right building spot for the studio, we're going to be getting the loans. I've got a building. I've got a steel building company lined up with their prices. I think the size I want is 30 by 50 for $11,000. Now that's just the building. Then I got to get a general contractor to lay the foundation and kind of set in the plumbing and everything in the right place. So we have to work with a general contractor as well as the steel building company, because they have to give me the blueprints so that whoever lays the slab knows where to put all the bolts sticking up to put the building down onto. Because steel buildings bolt together. They're not like a stick-built house. They bolt together. And that's what makes them cheap. And I'm fine with living in a steel building. I don't care, as long as it's insulated. It is not a new thing. I've seen tons of people turn steel buildings into homes. And that's essentially what I'm doing, even though it's not really like a house. Yeah, it has a living quarters in it, but ultimately it's just a big wide open room that's temperature controlled. Because I am not having just an open building with a slab with no heating or air or anything like that. Not in Arkansas. I wouldn't be able to film anything. Can you imagine being in like armor or makeup or the Magog robes with all the hot lights on and all the equipment running and it's 110 in there? Ain't happening. It's got to be temperature controlled. And that's why it's all going to be one building. I'll just have me a little apartment on one end, you know, nice little bathroom, little kitchen, you know, my bed over there, my desk so I can do all my editing. And the rest of it's just going to be wide open. I'm going to make it into a wizard tower. So, houses, you know, Blind as Fuck says houses are pointless, in my opinion. They kind of are. They're very expensive because you got to plan out all the rooms and the hallways and all this and that. There's nothing wrong with just living in a big fucking open square space, in my opinion. It's like a studio apartment. It's like everything's right there. The only thing I care about being closed in is the laundry room / utility room and the bathroom. Because I live alone, so I don't care that I have to sleep out in the open. I don't give a shit. I'm sleeping. But the bathroom, I like having the privacy. You know, I don't want to shit out in the open. Because if I do have guests, you know, friends and stuff come out, I don't want to just be like, yeah, just come on in. I'm sitting there on the toilet. Hey, Mom. You know, so I want the bathroom, and then the purpose of having an enclosed utility room with the laundry, with the washer and dryer in there, is if I'm doing laundry, I don't want that sound of that dryer going echoing through the whole thing. So I really want it to be insulated in its own little room so that it cuts down on the sound. Because what if I decide to record or do a live stream and the fucking dryer's running, you know? Those are the only two things I care about actually being enclosed. The rest of the inner space can be all open for all I give a fuck. And that saves a lot of money, not having to put walls up, you know, and insulation and shit, you know? So there is nothing, in my opinion, there's nothing wrong with just living in a big open space. I live alone. I don't have a wife. I don't have kids. I don't give a shit. you know. One day I'll live in a proper house if that ever comes, but not now. I'm trying to do this. I'm trying to do this with the least amount of money spent on the actual building and development of the property as possible. That can all be the mortgage. So that my savings, my mutual funds, and my retirement that I cashed out, and the money I've raised from Patreon and everything every month, all goes into production and living expenses. Obviously, electricity bill and food, gas. But that's all very small, with the amount of money I'm making right now, I could potentially every month put like $1,000 towards the village or new props or whatever. So it's going to take time to build over time, but hopefully if it all works out by this time next year, depending on the money coming in, this time next year, it'll all be done. So yeah, it sounds like a really long way away, like a year away. But if you think about it, if I'm spending $2,000 a month doing something new on the village, every month, every time I get that Patreon payout, something new for the village, something new for the props, something new for the production, then by this time next year, I should have everything. And in that time, I'll also still be making new Magog videos and the new indoor set, so it's going to be more exciting than my basic set here. And I'll also be learning the new equipment, like the new camera and the new, building a crane system and stuff for more complex shots, and learning all of that and writing scripts for the first season, so that by the time I am done spending that money and the village is done and everything's ready to go and I've got actors lined up and a team of people, I'll know, we'll be ready to film, So that's the update. So, I hope you all enjoyed that little update. Pay attention to Twitter. I wanted to post the pictures on Patreon. I took a bunch of pictures of the land being developed, and you know what pisses me off? Patreon only allows you to post one picture at a time. On Twitter, you can load like 4 or 5 pictures, and they'll all be part of the same tweet, and people can like cycle through them. Patreon only lets you do one at a time. They don't let you to post multiple pictures all in one post. Isn't that fucking insane? Mr. Monkeylid says, after I graduate school and get settled, I might be able to do something for that Lovecraft story you have. That'd be cool. You guys know my Twitter DMs are unlocked. Message me. Let me know when you start making more props, like your knife. Of course, Stalvin's Forge. You know it, buddy. I also have a fan who's sending me a skull helmet. It's like a metal helmet he made, but it's it comes down like this. It's like a half helm. And it comes down and it's shaped like a skull. Right here. That's pretty cool. Be able to use that. So definitely, if you're on Patreon, I can't give you a lot of pictures because it's only like one upload, one picture per upload, and that just fill up my page with like individual pictures. So follow me on Twitter. Follow me on the social medias, because I post them on Instagram too. I have an Instagram account. I never put that link out there because I hardly use it, but I figured it's good for pictures at least. So there is a Magog Amorskar Instagram. And I post the pictures there too. So if you don't have Twitter, I'll probably go ahead and start posting it on my Gab and Minds as well. They're two that I have, but I don't think about them a lot. But I definitely will do that. And it's going to take time because I have to pay for a lot of this work to be done because I don't know how to do it. I don't have the machinery. I don't have the skill to build my own steel building. Like I wish I did, but I don't. So I've got to pay a contractor to do this. I have to pay the guy doing my land right now. He's the one with the Caterpillar and the the dump truck and shit. You know how long it would take for me to go up there with a chainsaw and do this one tree at a time? It would be fucking years. So yeah, I'm paying people to do a lot of the work and everything, but it'll get there. And at least we're finally seeing some after a month. Because I made that big announcement on my main channel about what I was trying to do, and I got the big Patreon boost, and everybody wanted to help me out, which I still fucking appreciate. I'm still so humbled by that. But at the end of the day, it's still going to take time because I mean, if I had a lump sum of $2 million right now, I'd fucking just do it all right now. I'd just be like, whatever, pay you, pay my fans to come out and fucking help build the place, like, but unfortunately that's not it. So we got to do this in stages. I got to wait until the money comes in every month. And then I got to spend it. Then I wait for the money to come in every month and then I spend it. And so over time it's going to happen, but at least it's good since my announcement to finally see some work getting done. It's so exciting. I go up to the property right now and it's just like that first 2 acres is starting to get cleared. There's a big pile of fucking underbrush ready to burn. Like it's all churned up and turned into dirt now. So I'm not getting eaten alive by bugs because we've killed their home, so, yeah, it's really exciting. And so when he's done up there, I'll go and do a video so I can document the video. I'd like to document it on video and walk around and show everybody what's been done. And you can compare that to the tour of the land that I did on this channel a few months ago or a month ago. Did you do a costume groundbreaking photo? No, I didn't. I'm not going out in that 100-degree weather dressed as Magog to do a picture of me standing there on a pile of dirt. I'm sorry. The time will come one day. In the meantime, I've been working on script ideas for the main show, as well as new characters. I've been doing some concept images that I once I compile them all together, I'll share them with you guys. I just don't want to do them one at a time. I want people to be able to kind of flip through all the images like a book and see some concept drawings of costumes and armor and things that I imagine, and a basic layout of the village one of these days. But I kind of have to decide how big the plot of land is needed to do the buildings. So, because an acre is a huge thing. I mean, it's really big. An acre is quite a bit. It's like 43,000 square foot, and I have 12 of them. So you can actually put, like, I think I calculated it tonight when I was talking to my buddy. You could put 18 30 by 50 buildings or 30 by 40 buildings, 30 by 40 buildings on 1 acre. So that's a lot of space. Now that's them all jammed together, because that's total square footage. But imagine that. Imagine being able to put 5 or 6 buildings with enough space in between them to look like a village on just 1 acre. So it might be able to do it on 1 acre. I don't know. I'd like to clear at least 2 though for the village. That way there can be some outward, some farmland or something. Maybe plant some hay or wheat or something out there so that it looks nice. As kind of like a distant field of crops outside the village or something. So we'll have to wait and see. So, but we'll get there. Anyway, thanks to everybody for dropping by. Mr. Monkeylid said, I did not know the Dark Lord Magog had an ex-wife who is also a necromancer and wants to kill him. Oh, you're talking about Lythea? Yeah, God, I can't wait to start auditioning actresses for Lythea, because she's got to be very particular. She's not an ex-wife, but she does want to kill Magog. Magog's not the only necromancer in Morscar, and I thought that it would be great to have kind of a juxtaposition to Magog, but has the same powers as him. And I thought that like a hot female Magog would be a perfect juxtaposition for Magog, because he'd be kind of like, he'd hate her for what she's done, but he'd kind of also be enamored with her beauty and strangeness. So I thought it'd be a really fun juxtaposition. So, but you guys have a good night. I'm going to end it here and go get some food. Thanks for coming in and listening to our talk. Went by pretty quick. That's what happens when you're talking to cool people. But y'all have a good night, and I'm going to do this again when I have an interview with Sargon, and more updates to come. So y'all take it easy. We'll see you next time.